A family tonight is grieving this mother and her 10-year-old daughter. And it's this Miami woman, Leoda Bradshaw, who is accused of hiring hitmen to kill them in Jamaica. This is Bradshaw walking out of a Jamaican courtroom after being charged. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecution in Jamaica alleges Bradshaw and her cousin hired 2 men to murder a child and her mother. The contracted men allegedly carried out the murder by shooting the victims, then burning them.
On the night of September 9th, 2023, a chilling crime unfolded on Gilmour Drive, Jamaica. Toshyna Patterson and her young daughter, Sarayah, vanished from their home, abducted in a sinister plot that had been set in motion days before. The mastermind, Leoda Bradshaw. She had a personal vendetta fueled by jealousy and rage over Toshyna's alleged ties to Jamaican politician Phillip Paulwell. Just 24 hours before the abduction, Bradshaw had already confronted Patterson online. But words weren't enough. She wanted revenge. Reports suggest Bradshaw personally orchestrated the hit, even flying into Jamaica to make sure it was carried out. Patterson and her daughter were taken to East Kingston, where their lives were brutally ended. But the horror didn't stop there. Their killers set fire to their remains, determined to erase all traces of what they had done. Sadly, this is not the first time a woman has orchestrated the murder of a fellow woman just to keep a man. So, in today's video, we will be going over some of the horrific cases of baby mamas who killed their baby daddy's new girlfriends. Starting off is the tragic case of Toshyna Patterson. Toshyna Patterson was a 27-year-old woman from Jamaica. She had recently become a mother after giving birth to a baby girl named Sarayah Paulwell just 10 months before her tragic disappearance. Toshyna, or Tosh, as she was fondly called, lived in Jamaica, where she was raising her daughter while also trying to build a future for herself. She was young, full of life, and had a family who loved her dearly. Her relationship with Phillip Paulwell, a well-known Jamaican politician, was complicated. Paulwell, who was 61 years old at the time, was a senior member of the People's National Party, PNP, and had served as a member of parliament for over 2 decades. He had been involved in various government roles, including Minister of Energy and Mining. But outside of politics, he had a reputation for being involved with multiple women and fathering children with different mothers. Toshyna was one of those women. She had been seeing Paulwell, and their relationship resulted in the birth of their daughter, Sarayah. However, it wasn't long before she realized that she was not the only woman in his life. Leoda Bradshaw was a 34-year-old petty officer in the U.S. Navy. She has been serving as a cook and recruiter in Miami, Florida, since 2020. Like Toshyna, Leoda was originally from Jamaica, but she had moved to the United States and worked hard to establish herself. She was respected in her career and was seen as a successful woman with a stable job. Leoda also had a daughter with Phillip Paulwell. Her child was much older than Toshyna's, an 8-year-old girl. But unlike Toshyna, Leoda believed she had a special place in Paulwell's life. She considered herself his long-term partner, even though they were never married. According to official Miami-Dade County records, Leoda was actually married to another man in the U.S. She had tied the knot 5 years earlier, but for some reason, she still acted as if she had a deep connection with Paulwell. To her, Toshyna was an intruder, a woman who had come into her life and taken what she believed was hers. The conflict between Leoda and Toshyna started to heat up in early September 2023. On September 5th, 2023, Leoda reached out to Toshyna on Facebook. She sent her a message claiming to be Paulwell's wife. In that message, she demanded that Toshyna get a DNA test done on her 10-month-old daughter, Sarayah, to confirm that Paulwell was the father. This demand must have confused Toshyna. She was already receiving financial support from Paulwell, and there had never been an issue regarding the child's paternity before. So why was this woman, a complete stranger to her, suddenly getting involved? Toshyna responded, but quickly realized that something was off. She blocked Leoda on Facebook and moved on. But Leoda wasn't done. The very next day, September 6th, 2023, Leoda flew from Miami to Jamaica, and her purpose for that long trip was to get rid of Toshyna and her baby. When Leoda landed in Jamaica, she went straight to her 30-year-old cousin, Roland Baylor. Roland was a man with the connections Leoda needed to execute her deadly plans. He knew people who were willing to do dirty work for money, so together, Leoda and Roland came up with a plan to make Toshyna and her baby disappear. They set their plan in motion by reaching out to two other men, 29-year-old Rochain Miller, who was an air conditioning technician, and 31-year-old Richard Brown, a graphic artist from Kingston. These men were the hitmen who Leoda and Roland recruited to their team to kidnap and murder Toshyna and her toddler. Their deal was simple. Leoda gave them an upfront payment of 100,000 Jamaican dollars, which was less than $650 US. Once the job was done, they would receive an additional 400,000 Jamaican dollars, which was about 2,600 US. So the total cost of those two precious lives was just a little over 3,200 US. But Leoda had already made up her mind, and nothing was going to stop her. On September 9th, 2023, just 4 days after their first online conversation, Leoda put her plan into action. That morning, she called Toshyna multiple times. She acted so calmly on the phone, pretending she just wanted to talk. Unfortunately, this time, Toshyna agreed to meet her.
So one time some people say, she fool, and a fool, your niece fool. She just down to earth.
She just vulnerable and she wasn't streetwise. She wasn't streetwise. This girl is a more tough girl. This girl is more of a bully more than her. That's why the girl take advantage of her. She didn't open to certain things. Because a person who's streetwise, a girl that's streetwise, she would have got her like that. And when people was chatting, said she see the van come and she thought it was Paulwell. She know it wasn't Paulwell.
When Leoda arrived at Toshyna's home in an SUV, security cameras captured Toshyna walking outside with baby Sarayah in her arms. Before stepping into the vehicle, she told her mother she was only going outside for a quick conversation, but her mother had a bad feeling about the whole thing. So in a moment of motherly instinct, she took a bottle of olive oil and rubbed it all over baby Sarayah. She told her daughter, "No weapon formed against this baby will prosper."
Because the morning when she get up and she put on her clothes, she went to her mom and told her mom that Leona is coming to talk to her. And when it's like the mom sensed that something gonna go wrong, when she was going through the door, the mom called her back and get a bottle of olive oil and olive oil the baby from the head to the toe. And the daughter said to her, "Mom, why you done that?" She said to the other daughter, "No weapon that form against this baby will prosper."
Sadly, Toshyna and baby Sarayah's fate was already sealed at this point, and not even the prayers could save them. At 9 a.m., Toshyna got into the SUV to talk with Leoda. 20 minutes later, the car drove away, and that was the last time anyone saw the mother and her 8-month-old toddler alive. At first, it didn't seem like anything was wrong. Hours passed, then a whole day, but Toshyna never returned home. Her family grew worried. They called her phone, but there was no answer. Her mother was beginning to confirm her suspicion at this point. She remembered the uneasy feeling she had that morning, the moment she anointed baby Sarayah with oil before they left. It was as if she had sensed danger, but didn't know how to stop it. By the end of the day, September 9th, 2023, the family reported Toshyna and Sarayah missing. When news of the disappearance broke, Phillip Paulwell, the baby's father, went public. He called it a scary time and claimed that scammers had contacted him demanding money. He even offered a reward of 500,000 Jamaican dollars to anyone who had information about his missing daughter and her mother. But while Paulwell was pleading for their return, investigators started digging into the case, and it didn't take long before all fingers started pointing at Leoda Bradshaw. She was the one who had been messaging her on Facebook. She was the one who flew to Jamaica just days before the disappearance. She was the one who picked her up in an SUV that morning. Then came the biggest red flag. Leoda publicly denied having anything to do with the case. She released a long statement on Facebook where she tried to clear her name. She wrote, "My name is Leoda Bradshaw. I am a federal officer. I have a daughter with Mr. Phillip Paulwell, and we are in a long-term relationship. I wish to state categorically that I have nothing to do with the disappearance of Miss Toshyna Patterson and her baby girl. She went on to say that she had only interacted with Toshyna once on Facebook, and that she was simply looking out for the child's well-being. But there was one big problem. Phone records showed that Leoda had made multiple calls to Toshyna on the day she disappeared. And not only that, she had been in direct contact with the men who had carried out the attack. Jamaican authorities immediately began looking into Leoda, and soon the truth started to unravel. They traced her movements from Miami to Jamaica. They found that she had contacted her cousin, Roland Baylor, the moment she arrived, and her cousin Roland had hired 2 hitmen, Rochaine Miller and Richard Brown. While investigators were still trying to put all these together to know who did what and when, the biggest breakthrough in the case. On September 16, 2023, 1 week after the disappearance, an unidentified person was detained at one of Jamaica's international airports. This person had been trying to leave the country, but authorities were able to stop them. At the time, their identity was kept secret while investigators were still working on completely solving the case. Then, in early October 2023, just a month after the crime, Jamaican police made a shocking discovery. The remains of Toshyna Patterson and her baby, Sarayah, were discovered in Rockfort, East Kingston. The mother and daughter had been brutally murdered and burned beyond recognition by the hitmen to destroy the evidence. Authorities said this was one of the most brutal and heartbreaking discoveries in recent Jamaican history.
As the JCF continues the investigation into the disappearance of Toshyna Patterson and her 10-month-old child, Sarayah Paulwell, on Saturday, September 9, 2023, I wish to inform the public that we are now satisfied by the overwhelming evidence. It is one of the most painful investigations for the team since recent times.
The news sent shockwaves across the country. People were horrified that a mother and her 10-month-old daughter had been murdered in such a cold and inhuman way. After police discovered their burned remains, they wasted no time tracking down the people responsible. The evidence they had gathered pointed in one clear direction: Leoda Bradshaw, her cousin Roland Baylor, and the 2 hitmen, Rochaine Miller and Richard Brown. On October 12, 2023, just 2 days after the remains were found, police made their first big move. Leoda Bradshaw was arrested in Kingston, Jamaica.
A family tonight is grieving this mother and her 10-year-old daughter. And it's this Miami woman, Leoda Bradshaw, who is accused of hiring hitmen to kill them in Jamaica.
Not long after her arrest, her 30-year-old cousin, Roland Baylor, was also taken into custody. Then, on October 14, 2023, authorities caught the 2 hitmen, 29-year-old Rochaine Miller and 31-year-old Richard Brown. By this point, police had already gathered strong evidence against all 4 suspects. Phone records showed that Leoda had been in constant contact with Roland before and after the murder. Leoda's mother and neighbors had seen Leoda pick up Toshyna and her baby in the SUV. Bank transactions revealed that Leoda had sent money to Roland to pay the hitmen. One of the suspects even confessed that they had been hired by Leoda and Roland to make the mother and baby disappear. Jamaican authorities charged all 4 suspects with multiple crimes, including 2 counts of murder for Toshyna and Sarayah, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and 2 counts of kidnapping. On October 16, 2023, Leoda was brought before the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court for the first time. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors laid out their case against her with overwhelming evidence. But despite all the evidence against her, Leoda did something shocking. She pleaded not guilty. She stood before the judge and denied having anything to do with the murders. However, the judge denied her bail and remanded her in custody while the case moved forward.
Leoda Vanessa Bradshaw, 34 years old, petty officer in the U.S. Navy. She was charged with 2 counts of conspiracy to murder, 2 counts of conspiracy to kidnapping, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of murder.
This is Bradshaw walking out of a Jamaican courtroom after being charged. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecution in Jamaica alleges Bradshaw and her cousin hired 2 men to murder a child and her mother. The contracted men allegedly carried out the murder by shooting the victims, then burning them.
Like Leoda, her 3 co-conspirators appeared in court and pleaded not guilty to the charges against them. And just like her, they were all denied bail. Throughout the entire investigation, many people wondered if Phillip Paulwell had any involvement in the crime. After all, he was the father of both children, Leoda's daughter and baby Sarayah, and it was his romantic relationship with both women that had led to this deadly conflict. But authorities later confirmed that Paulwell had nothing to do with the murders. He released a statement saying that anyone could murder a mother and an innocent baby is unimaginable, and my heart is heavy with sadness. I am praying for Toshyna's family, who I know are experiencing unbearable grief and pain. But many people didn't believe his words were genuine. They accused him of being partially responsible for what happened because of his history of having multiple relationships with younger women. But legally, there was no evidence linking him to the crime, and he was never charged. As of December 2023, Leoda Bradshaw, Roland Baylor, Rochaine Miller, and Richard Brown remain in custody. Their next court appearance was set for early 2024. However, we don't have any update on the case at the time of making this video. Next up is the heartbreaking case of Toshyna Wallace. Toshyna Wallace was a 36-year-old mother who was pregnant with her 6th child at the time of her death. She was originally from Boynton Beach, Florida, but later moved to Birmingham, Alabama, where she was raising her children and trying to build a better future. She had attended Boynton Beach Community High School and later enrolled at Miles College to study business management. Though she had taken a break, she had just re-enrolled in the fall of 2023 because she wanted to open her own boutique. She loved fashion, and those close to her said she dreamed of owning a small business one day. Toshyna was described as a happy, outgoing, and loving person. She adored her kids, and despite life's struggles, she always had a smile on her face.
Yes, I'm eating good. Yow! Slap the bone! Yow!
But despite her admirable outward personality, Toshyna's personal life was very complicated. She was in a messy relationship with a man who would ultimately become the reason behind her death. The name of this man has not been made public, but what we do know is that he was in relationships with 2 different women at the same time, Toshyna Wallace and another woman named Ania Nowden. Ania Nowden was much younger than Toshyna. At just 21 years old, she was also pregnant with this same man's child. This, of course, led to a toxic and tense situation between the 2 women. Both women disliked each other, and their hatred only grew when they realized they were both expecting babies from the same man at the same time. They argued online, exchanged threats, and even had in-person confrontations. But on July 7th, 2023, that anger boiled over and turned into something deadly. On that fateful day, Toshyna had been out with her children. Her 2-year-old daughter, Sky, was in her arms, while her 2 other kids walked beside her. She was only 2 days away from celebrating Sky's birthday, a day she had been planning with so much excitement. Then, out of nowhere, Toshyna came face to face with Ania Nowden. Now, remember, these 2 women had a long history of tension. They had argued for months, both online and in person. They were both pregnant by the same man, and the anger between them had only grown stronger over time. That night, in the Norwood neighborhood of Birmingham, the 2 women started arguing again. Witnesses say the argument quickly got heated, with both women yelling at each other. As the argument got worse, Ania pulled out a gun, and without any hesitation, she pulled the trigger. The gun went off, and the bullet hit Toshyna in the face, right in front of her children.
Ooh.
The 2-year-old was still in her arms as she fell to the ground. Her other kids stood there, watching in horror as their mother was executed right in front of them. Everything just happened so fast that in just a few seconds, Toshyna went from arguing to fighting for her life. When police and paramedics arrived at the scene, they found her on the ground, bleeding badly. She was rushed to UAB hospital, but her injuries were too severe. Despite doctors' efforts, she was pronounced dead the very next day, on July 8th, 2023, just 2 days before her daughter's birthday. Meanwhile, Ania was still at the scene when police arrived. She didn't try to run or escape, so she was taken into custody immediately. At just 21 years old, 8 months pregnant, and now under arrest for murder, her life had changed forever. But for Toshyna's children, their lives had changed in a much worse way. They had just lost their mother, and even worse, they had watched her die right in front of them, and the man they had both fought over, he was nowhere to be found. In the days following Justyna's death, her family and friends struggled to accept reality. Justyna had always been a loving mother, and now her kids were left without her. Her 2-year-old daughter, Sky, had a birthday party planned for July 10th, 2023, just 2 days after her mother was murdered. Many people thought the party should be canceled. After all, how could anyone celebrate when Sky had just witnessed her mother's death? But Justyna's friends decided to go ahead with the party. They believed Justyna would have wanted it that way. They wanted to honor her memory and make sure Sky still got to experience joy, even in the middle of the tragedy. At the party, there were balloons, music, and gifts, but the atmosphere was heavy. People were crying, hugging each other, and struggling to understand why this had happened.
We love you, Justyna. We love you, Justyna. We love you, Justyna. Release your balloons.
Let them go, yeah. We love you, baby.
Meanwhile, Justyna's family started preparing for her funeral. She was laid to rest in Boynton Beach, Florida, where she had grown up. Her sister, Shamari Cook, spoke about how devastated the family was. She couldn't believe her sister was gone forever.
Shamari Cook describes her sister as a doting mother whose energy was infectious. That's why she's still shocked after learning Wallace had been shot at her Norwood apartment complex. Cook says her sister was holding her toddler when it happened. 2 of her other children were next to her.
As Justyna's family mourned, her killer, Ania Nowden, sat in jail, and the Birmingham police wasted no time pressing charges. Ania was officially charged with capital murder. Now, capital murder is a very serious charge. It means that if convicted, Ania could face life in prison without parole, or even the death penalty. Her first court appearance was on July 10th, 2023, the same day as Sky's birthday party. Reports said that when she stood before the judge, she didn't show any emotion in court. She just sat there quietly, listening to the judge. A few weeks after her arrest, Ania's lawyer filed a motion asking the judge to release her from jail on bond. Her lawyer, Erskine Mathis, argued that Ania was 8 months pregnant and needed to be released on house arrest so she could have her baby outside of jail. He also claimed that she had high blood pressure and preeclampsia, making her pregnancy high risk, but the judge refused. The court decided that Ania was too dangerous to be released. Instead of sending her home, the judge moved her to the jail's medical floor, where she would stay under medical supervision until she gave birth. Ania was not happy about this. She later complained that she was stuck with inmates who had mental health issues, but the judge didn't change his decision. Ania's case is still ongoing, and prosecutors are pushing for the harshest punishment possible. Because the murder happened in front of a child, her case qualifies for the death penalty. Meanwhile, Justyna's children are now left to grow up without their mother. Her family and friends are still grieving, knowing that she died in such a violent and senseless way. Next is the horrific case of Derica Wiggins. At just 20 years old, Derica Wiggins had already gained a reputation for being one of those jealous and toxic ex who was willing to throw away their own lives in a desperate attempt to keep a man. She had been dating a young man whose name has not been publicly released, but when their relationship ended, she didn't take it well. Her ex moved on quickly with another woman. This new girlfriend, whose name is also undisclosed, had a baby, but it's unclear whether her ex-boyfriend was the father. What is clear, though, is that Derica hated this woman with a passion. She stalked them, kept tabs on their relationship, and seemed obsessed with making their lives miserable. And on a fateful night in March 2023, she decided she wasn't just going to watch from a distance anymore. She was going to take action. It was March 1st, 2023, and the ex-boyfriend, his new girlfriend, and their baby were fast asleep in their home in Park Grove, Memphis, Tennessee. The new girlfriend woke up around midnight and something didn't feel right to her. She thought she heard a strange noise, the sound of a lighter clicking. It was coming from outside the bedroom door. Then she saw a shadow moving behind the door. For a second, she thought it was one of her boyfriend's siblings. Maybe one of them had woken up and was just passing by. So, she brushed it off and went back to sleep. But she had no idea that, at that very moment, Derica Wiggins was inside the house. Nobody knows exactly how Derica got inside. Maybe she had a spare key, maybe she picked the lock, or maybe the front door was left unlocked. But however she got in, she wasn't supposed to be there. she slowly crept toward the bedroom, where her ex and his new girlfriend were sleeping peacefully. And that's when she made her next move. She reached for a lighter and flicked it on. Then she held it to the comforter covering the 3 sleeping victims: her ex, his girlfriend, and their baby. She lit the fabric on fire and watched as the flames began to spread. Darika didn't run away immediately. No, she stood there, watching the fire grow, waiting to see what would happen next. Within seconds, the girlfriend woke up again, but this time, it wasn't because of a noise. It was a choking, smoke smell. She looked down and saw that the blanket covering them was on fire, with the flames spreading very quickly. She let out a frantic scream that immediately alerted her boyfriend. He jumped up, immediately, ripped the burning comforter off the bed, and stomped out the fire before it could reach their bodies. They rushed to grab the baby and escape the bedroom, but just as they ran out the door, they saw her. Darika Wiggins was standing in the driveway, waiting. The ex-boyfriend didn't hesitate before he stormed outside and confronted her right there on the spot. But that was even a very risky move. I mean, this woman had already tried to kill them once that night. What else was she capable of? What if she had a gun? Anyway, by the time firefighters and police arrived, the fire had already been put out. While no one sustained any injuries, their comforter was badly burned, and the inside of the house had minor fire damage. When investigators started collecting evidence at the scene, they discovered that a doorbell camera had captured the whole thing. The footage showed a woman entering the house just before the fire started. Then, minutes later, it showed the same woman leaving the house, and it was clearly Darika Wiggins. It was clear that this was a premeditated crime to wipe out an entire family. And just 2 days after the attack, on Friday, March 3rd, 2023, police tracked down Darika Wiggins and arrested her. She was charged with multiple felonies, including aggravated arson, reckless burning, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and setting fire to another person's property. Her bond was set at $150,000, and she was booked into Shelby County Jail. Her next court appearance was scheduled for Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, but at the time of making those videos, we don't have any update on the case. Which of these cases triggered you the most? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more crime stories. Click on any of the cards on your screen right now to watch more of our videos.